get loud. It might light a fire within you. It's all hands on deck. Now, for your listening pleasure, 94.9 News Now presents Mean Chet Martin, the Long Island Redneck Brian Bro, and fearless C.V. Burton. This is Freedom on Deck.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. It's FOD. I am Mean Chet Martin. I'm joined here by fearless C.V. Burton. C.V., what it is?
The deep state, where justice is best served cold.
And it's deeper than you think, and A.G. Barr is going to get down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. We have some fantastic topics for you folks. We have Daria Novak, political commentator and talk show host. She's going to come on with us and talk a little bit about Iran, and we're going to talk about that now as well. We also have Grant. I'm trying to hold on. Let me get the spelling of his name correctly here before Grant Haber. Sorry about that. And he's coming by with us, and he's the VP of American Innovations Incorporated, and his IED Detect Kit is what we're going to be talking about with him. And, of course, Brigitte Gabriel, which is a pre-recorded interview, but we're going to present that to you. Now, moving on, before we get to Iran, our owner, John Fuller, and the voice of freedom, Lee Elsey, made national news this past week with the announcement of Trump Radio. That's right, Trump Radio, 103.3 in Hartford, where Lee Elsey and all of our national shows are heard. The announcement of Trump Radio garnered attention from The Hill, The New York Times, Fox News. Actually, CV put up the Hill article on FreedomOnDeck.com to give it a little more attention, and countless other news sources, and has been the talk of Hartford over the past week. Now Lee's heard on 5 stations, and people are driving off 95. Liberals' heads are exploding. Can you imagine? How dare they call it Trump Radio? It's hilarious. It's like the ultimate troll job, I think.
They should have called it America First Network. That's what they should have
I
called
like Trump Radio. It got that national attention. I mean, look at the stories. It's all over the place. So it gives our station a little bit of credit, too, because it mentions WJJF. It brings attention to us.
Well, it helps level the playing field a little bit because it's so unbalanced. Every station is so anti-Trump. Every TV news network except maybe Fox, and Fox is borderline.
And even besides that, even the talk radio. Talk radio is greatly conservative because nobody listens to liberal talk radio. Remember Air America? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that worked out well. But the news break is still liberal on most stations, WABC, WJJF, and there's not much you can do about that because they kind of cornered the market in all of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about Iran. We've sent some of our ships in there, some of our bombers. They have been in the Persian Gulf with some smaller ships that have short-range ballistic missiles. And now you have Saudi Arabia claiming that they attacked some of their oil tankers with drones and that they were actually planning an attack on the United States of America over in Iraq and Syria. So now we're going into the Gulf. And, you know, this is where it gets tricky. Because Trump has said himself, I'm not looking to go to war with Iran. But there are some people in the background. One of them in particular that worries me is Mr. John Bolton, National Security Advisor. You know, he wanted to go to war with Iran initially, and he tried to convince Bush, if you don't remember, after the Trade Center attacks and after Bush had gone into Iraq to also go into Iran. That never happened. So my concern here, CV, is that there's going to be a shot fired. There's going to be a response. And I'm worried about not only Iran, but I'm worried about Russia and China. This could get really, really messy and hairy really fast.
I'm more worried about John Kerry because he's being coaxed by, I'm sure, Barack O'Jarrett to preserve the Obama-Iran deal and all this, and he's going to be brought up on the Logan Act charges, and I think he's behind this. I think he's encouraging them.
Well, you know what worries me. This all kind of escalated after Trump put a kibosh on the Iran nuclear deal. And what worries me is what you just said. Are John Kerry, Barack Obama, and all the other infiltrators that are still in the deep state prodding Iran to make these moves against the United States of America? I think they probably are.
Yeah.
That's sedition.
They're trying to hurt Trump, before the election, and this is going to factor into that if things escalate between the United States and Iran, and there's more violence in the Middle East. It's going to bode badly for our side. So Trump has got to tread lightly here.
Well, tread lightly. You have the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I'm not saying he's any hero. Certainly, Saudi has their own issues. Who also is defense minister and controls major levels of power in the Sunni kingdom. And he's not commented publicly on this week's incidents, but in a Saudi TV interview in 2017, he said that the kingdom knows it is the main target of the Shiite Iran, and there's no room for dialogue with Tehran. He also claimed that they were the ones that sent these
sabotage
the drone.
ships.
Yeah, sabotage the ships with the drones. I was thinking of drone. I'm sorry. A lot of baseball this weekend.
There are drones that go underwater. Just because it's called drone doesn't mean it's flying in the air. Some drones go in underwater and hit ships.
And I'm not sure which one it was. I'm not claiming to. But so it would look like this if something broke out. It would be the United States of America, obviously Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Now, those are three major powerhouses. Militarily, it's pretty vaunted. Now, if you had China, Russia, and Iran, they're tough, but they don't have what we have, and they certainly don't have what Israel has. And Saudi Arabia is well off, too. Syria would fall, actually, believe it or not, Syria's going to fall on the side with Russia. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're going to stick with Russia. I don't know where anybody else would fit in with us and the tensions that we have right now with the European nations because of their abuse of their people. But if there's a big attack and a moment where they do something, which supposedly they were planning to, attacking our soldiers, this president is going to respond. He's not going to be like spineless bum-ass when they pull over our sailors and hold them captive, and then you send them a pallet of money, not because you were freeing those sailors, but because you wanted to send them that money. And don't forget, CV, Iran is funding Hamas.
Yes,
Iran funded ISIS. Iran is behind all these terrorist groups getting all these weapons and attacking Israel, and you can't tell me that doesn't tick the president off.
They're being crafty. They're using their proxies like Hamas and other groups. Hamas was just lobbing missiles into Tel Aviv just like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they're hoping for plausible deniability with these sabotage attacks on these ships. And they're like, well, you can't prove that we did it, but at the same time they're antagonizing us at the same time. So they're trying to make it look like they did it, but maybe they didn't. So it's like they're putting us in a difficult position.
They're putting us in a tough spot, but I do want the president to stay the course. He has said that he is a anti-war president, and I believe he is. Don't let anyone pressure you into it, Mr. President. Mm-hmm. As much as you may trust someone, make sure that this is your decision and no one else's. And if you do that, the American people will support you no matter what. Listen, we're going to come back here on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, WJJF. Freedom on Deck. We're going to be talking about Barr investigating the Obama administration and the dossier, and it's ramping up, folks. He did a TV interview. We're going to talk about it. Come back to FOD. Comey and Brennan, they're no longer friends. Told you. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now, and Stimulating Talk.
I thought of raking the leaves, thought of mowing the yard,
man, summer's coming. You're starting to feel it. I was out with the boys yesterday, baseball, and I got burnt. I got burnt pretty bad. I wasn't expecting it, and I was in the shade. It's hot in the shade, you know.
Yeah, I was doing the lawn today, and then I was dismantling the pool, and it takes a lot out of me.
We had the baseball pictures, and we had to spike the faux hawks that I had to go and spend $50 on Friday night. Like these haircuts. Liam, he's got the designs in the side of his head now.
Yeah, bad. Can I say badass?
Yeah, you can say badass. We've said worse, haven't we?
I think so. On the podcast we have, yes.
I want to talk about A.G. Barr. I think he's doing a fantastic job, and I commend him for doing the job that I don't think Sessions ever could have. But reacting to his Fox News interview, AG General William Barr, that included Barr essentially threatening Democrats who criticize him and justifying the president calling the Mueller probe a witch hunt. Fox News anchor Chris Wallace, Meatloaf Jr., as Mike Savage likes to call him. And if you don't know why, it's because his father threw meatloaf at a reporter back in I believe, the 60s or 70s. So that's why he's Meatloaf Jr. Said Friday that Trump now has a new fixer. That's how he sounds, too, Chris Wallace.
When you told me that story earlier, I thought you were talking about Meatloaf's son.
No, I'm talking about Chris Wallace, the wonderful liberal on Fox News.
I hate that guy. He sounds like Mr. Rogers when he speaks.
He looks like Mr. Rogers. He's probably a creepy pedophile, too.
Yeah.
In the interview that was aired Friday, Barr told Fox News anchor Bill Hemmer, who I think does a great job, and actually Bill is going to be coming on with us probably in about a month or two, that House Democrats who have accused him of contempt on Congress, are discrediting him because they're likely concerned about the outcome of the review of what happened during the election. Furthermore, the Attorney General said he wants to see the FBI officials put their thumb on the scale. Now, okay, Wallace is upset. So are all the other. It's not just Wallace. Listen, I'm not picking on Wallace, even though I think he's a jerk. You know, every journalist or TV anchor, they're all saying the same thing. This guy's in the back pocket of the president. You said it in the break. What about Eric Holder?
Yeah, who is he working for?
Second of all, I watched the interview with Bill Hemmer, and Bill Barr was saying, I don't want to comment on that until we know for a fact. I'm not saying it's true. We're going to launch an investigation. We're going to look into it. What's wrong with launching a federal probe into what they were doing with this Steele dossier and the weaponizing of the FISA courts? What? We already know it happened. If you don't know that it happened, then you are a very thick man or woman. Your head is in the sand. But we have to prove it through a probe like this.
Yeah, the way you said it earlier, I think you kind of flubbed it slightly. I think what Barr was saying is that he was concerned that the FBI were putting their thumb on the scale.
I did flub it.
A little bit.
That's my reading skills there.
But it's true. It's like if you're spying on the incoming president and then the president, of course you should be concerned. It's ridiculous. If you want to talk about a constitutional crisis, there's your constitutional crisis.
Yeah, it's not the first time that Barry spied on Americans.
He's
been doing it the whole time he was in office.
Exactly.
It was nothing new to him.
Exactly. It was just another day at the office for Obama.
He just felt there's no way that this guy's going to win, and if there's a slight chance, let's just make sure that it can't happen, and it all backfired. Because he's the one that was tipped off that Russia was meddling, or whatever they want to call it, that Russia was getting involved. Mm-hmm. And he did nothing. Mm-hmm. Because you know why he did nothing? He felt that it was going to behoove Hillary Clinton. That's why. Why else would he have done nothing? Think about that.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on something that irks me a lot. During the whole Obama administration, none of the Republicans stood up to him.
No.
They let him get away with murder. Literally murder. Benghazi, that was murder. Chris Stevens was murdered because he knew too much. There's no doubt about it. Who else could give the command to stand down? Only the President of the United States can give a stand-down order like that with authority.
It's good that you brought up Chris Stevens' name, because Liddy Denier, who was his fiancée, is on with us next week.
Wow.
Well, we want to revisit Benghazi because we want to talk, and I'm not planning on having her on once. I'm going to have her on 2 or 3 times. I don't want Americans to forget that happened under the Democrats' control.
Mm-hmm.
You keep your eye on 2020.
And under Hillary.
And under Hillary. I was sleeping. How dare you? God. She slept through it. She probably woke up, got the alerts, and was like, we know this is happening. We planned it. We hatched it.
Yeah.
I'm going back to bed.
Yeah. We came. We saw. Chris Stevens is dead.
Oh, God. Remember that one?
Yeah.
She's talking about Gaddafi, right?
Yeah. But
yeah,
isn't it a little bit of a coincidence how Chris Stevens was killed in the exact same way Gaddafi was by a mob who burned him and electrocuted him exact same way they did to Gaddafi.
And they tried to make it
that is not a coincidence.
Oh, those pictures, they were actually helping him. Right. Yeah, that's what they were doing. And all the weapons transferred went to ISIS. Isn't that interesting? That was a terrible time for the United States of America.
Horrible.
I remember watching it and I was like, what the hell is happening right now? What is this guy doing to our country, man?
I was in a state of depression the entire Obama administration, both terms.
Oh, God. That's why we got to keep President Trump in, man.
Keep America great.
We have got some ding-dongs over there. Now you got Bill de Blasio.
It's funny when you're trying not to curse the words that you come up with.
He is a ding-dong.
I know.
I mean, he's done such a good job in New York. They polled New Yorkers, and 89% of New Yorkers said he shouldn't run for president.
He's only doing it to generate income.
Of course. That's why they're all doing it.
It's just for his war chest. You know he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Did you see Beto? He live streamed himself getting his nostrils trimmed, his hair nostrils, and he goes to the Mexican barber. The barber says, who are you again? Because he didn't know who he was. He's like, oh, I'm running for president. They call me Beto. He said it like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how condescending and arrogant of him to tell the Mexican barber, they call me Beto.
He should be more concerned about the weeds that are growing in his brain than the weeds that are growing in his nose.
And they're all unhinged. You saw Sandy Cortex? She was talking to her garbage disposal a few weeks ago. Did you see this?
No,
she's like, I'm not sure if it's environmentally safe. Sandy, they don't put plastic and styrofoam in those garbage disposals, honey. They put organic matter in them, darling. Don't worry about it. And then she live streams it, and she puts it out for people to see. How did she get elected? Who heard her and they were like, wow, this is it. Look at her. And they try to pretend like she's a genius. The Democrats do.
I know.
It's insane.
We got to register more voters, like sane voters, because not enough people are voting.
Legal voters.
Legal voters, of course.
We've got to keep America great, and the only way to do that is with President Trump. We know that, and you know it. Anyone out there with a brain, unlike Sandy Cortex. Come on back. We're going to have Daria Novak, political commentator, talk show host, talking Iran, more Iran. Remember McCain? Bomb, 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 Iran. We'll talk to you in a minute. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk. WJJF on your FM dial. Make sure to go to FreedomOnDeck.com. Look at everything we have to offer from there. Weekly contributions from myself, Lee Elsey, Julio Rivera, Alex Newman from The New American. It's good stuff. You get your updated news there. You get the weekly podcast Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, if you're listening to us. And we get a lot of listeners from other states besides New York and Connecticut and Rhode Island. So we enjoy doing it, and it's a little more rough and raw. The site looks really great. The podcast is going well, but we're always going to have this terrestrial show for you guys, and we thank you for being here on Sundays. You know, I'm excited about this next guest. She's got a national radio program called the Brigitte Novak Report, and she's on TV, American Political Zone. She's doing great stuff in liberal cities, believe it or not. She's triggering the snowflakes, and she's a longtime friend of the program. Last time she was on with us, I believe she was running against Joe Courtney for Connecticut State Senate, and it's great to have her back, Miss Daria Novak. Daria, it's been far too long.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was U.S. Congress against Joe Courtney in 2016.
Oh, the Congress. I'm sorry.
No problem.
That's right. And you put up the good fight, and you got out of here, didn't you?
You know what? At some point, you just got to say, let's go someplace else where we can actually win some races. So down here in Virginia, we're coming back.
Before we get into, we're going to talk about Iran. Tell our listeners where they can hear your program, just to give it a little plug.
We're on terrestrial radio in a lot of cities across the country.
Mm-hmm.
To find out what cities and stations, you can go to amfm247.com, and there's stations listing there.
Okay, Daria, so let's get into the escalating tensions between Iran and the United States. In the Persian Gulf, it's come out that Iran or Iranian-backed groups in the Middle East were planning attacks against our forces in Iraq and Syria, and 4 Saudi oil tankers that Saudi came out and said were targeted and attacked by drones in the Persian Gulf. What do you make of all of this, Daria? Where are we headed with Iran?
Well, you know what, first of all, I'd like to say that I think when the president said it was fake news that we were planning to invade Iran, that he's very correct. What we need to recognize is the mainstream media is not going to tell us the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
When the president or others talked about 120,000 troops preparing to go to the Middle East, this was actually a plan started by the Obama administration between 2009 and 2011. These plans were drawn up by the Obama administration Pentagon as a projection of what we would need should something happen. What the president did was to ask his military advisors, what do we already have in place? What are our plans if something needs to be done? So this was not anything new that has been drawn up by this administration. So the people that are out there on the left that are screaming warmonger or this or that are way off. It actually came out of the Obama years. Now, when you talk about do we need to do something, we have to at some point be willing to stand up. We can't allow, whether it's our allies, whether it's our oil tankers or others, we cannot just allow Iran to run rampant throughout the Middle East. Now, what happens, I think, in the future, and this is just a little bit of a guess plus talking to some people at Defense Department recently,
mm-hmm.
is that we probably have a plan in place to make some specific attacks within the country of Iraq. What Iran has done that is interesting to protect itself, use proxies. So what we've done, the action we've taken is not to put 120,000 troops in, but we put reconnaissance and surveillance with Iran's proxies. Where are the ballistic missiles, other rockets, and drones? So I think if there is a strike in the future, it will be on some very specific military targets.
Why has Iran become so brash as of late?
I think it's starting to get desperate. At this point, Iran, if you look at who their friends are, they don't have very many friends, and those that they do have are not that strongly in their corner. Iran can no longer afford to purchase Russian or Chinese equipment anymore. China, for instance, is now taking 50% of the oil from Iran that it had been. It's down to, I believe, 500,000 barrels. So you're starting to see Iran getting squeezed. Iran just doesn't have the money to do what they'd like to do. I think it's come to a point now where we're also seeing that the regime in Iran is finding internal dissent increasing. We know that there have been riots and demonstrations, not only in Tehran, but in the outlying areas. And this is a very significant development in Iran. These outlying towns and cities are ones that could stand up to the regime in Tehran. So I think that the regime is starting to get a bit nervous. The sanctions are working.
Daria, are the leaders in Iran being encouraged by John Kerry in backroom deals? Is John Kerry telling them to hold on for 2 years because Trump is not going to be a factor pretty soon?
I don't have on that, but if I was a betting person, I'd take that bet. At this point, look at the history of John Kerry and his relationships over there. In a Republican doing what John Kerry has done, I have a feeling that you'd see the media and everything else calling him a traitor and calling for his prosecution.
We have Daria Novak. Her television show is American Political Zone. You can see it all over the place. And also the Verduccio Novak Report is a radio program. It's nationally syndicated, and you can also check that out. Daria, is part of this ratcheting up because of Iran's funding of terror, especially with Hamas and their sending of missiles into Israel? Could that be part of this in some way, encapsulating in this situation that's going on over in Iran right now?
I believe it is part of it. Now, if we want to look at Iran's behavior, let's just take a quick look at the media. What they've done in Iran is to recruit individuals to write on social media that are not Americans but are pretending to be Americans and saying things like the United States should not send troops to Iran. So there is a very strong, prolific campaign, a disinformation campaign on the part of Iran. I think that that's important to recognize because as Iran tries to become a hegemon in the area, they're having a difficult time and they're using every means possible that they can at this point. Social media, after the IRGC, the Iranian Guard, were designated a terrorist group, came out with all kinds of statements on social media. I think that this is definitively something that is different and it has not gone on as much in earlier years as it has of late. But again, I think it shows Iran is becoming a bit more desperate.
Daria, some people worry that National Security Advisor to the United States, John Bolton, could pressure President Trump into a conflict with Iran. What do you make out of that?
You know what? I would definitively say this president is not a weak individual, that he speaks his mind and he has his own ideas. So I think that John Bolton would be the last person to influence him. I think what Ambassador John Bolton will do is to provide the information, provide the different outcomes with different scenarios, and present it to the president for the president to decide. When the president asks for a recommendation from his national security advisor, John Bolton, a very loyal and patriotic American, will give him his best evaluation. I don't believe when you have an advisor to the president that means they're influencing them. They're providing them with a digest of the intelligence of all the information the president needs to make a good, solid decision that is in the national interests of the country.
What are they doing, Daria, when they send these little ships out with short-range ballistic missiles and they're buzzing by our aircraft carriers? What is that a show? It's certainly not a show of force. Is it like a bully tactic? What are they trying to accomplish with that?
If you think about two ships that are in the same area and one challenges the other one, the likelihood of an accident increases. If you have a missile that is going to be thrown across the bow of one of our ships or something like that type of a scenario, the likelihood of an accident increases. If that were to happen, the United States certainly would respond. Iran would then be, as you know, out on social media, out in the world, saying the United States created this provocative situation. They don't really have the ability to do what they're claiming they can do. That's the reality. Unfortunately, what we have to remember when we're looking at some of these countries, whether it's Syria or a Hezbollah group, or if we're looking at proxies or Iran itself, we have to remember as Americans that we cannot judge what their potential actions are by what actions the United States might take. These countries and these groups are willing to commit all kinds of abuses that we would not as a nation state commit. So when we look at plans that are drawn up to go after proxies of Iran, there's a reason. We have to make sure that we can protect the national interests of the United States in a way that is acceptable behavior in the international community. Iran has no such qualms about doing that. They will behave in a poor way if it benefits them.
Daria, would Russia and China stand by Iran if something like this was to escalate any further?
I think that Russia and Iran would like to see the United States occupied someplace besides the Korean Peninsula. When we see things that have gone on with Russian and U.S. planes in the Middle East testing out each other, in a sense, to find out what skills and capabilities each has, I think the likelihood increases of some type of an activity among those, if you want to call them enemies at this point. But I don't think that Russia or China particularly want to go to war with the United States. I think that proxy situations are where you might see action taking place. Furthermore, China right now is in dire straits. Mm-hmm. You know, they've got problems coming from North Korea. They've got problems internally in their own country. There's corruption. There's pollution. Their economy is feeling the sanctions, whether or not they like to publicly admit it. They've got a lot of problems. They're not the strong economy that some people think they are.
Well said, Daria. We've got 1 minute to go. I want you to be able to tell everybody where to go check you out again, please.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. We've got the American Political Zone and the Brigitte Novak report. You can on usagovpolicy.com. You can check out our articles and videos.
Everybody, that was the wonderful Miss Daria Novak, and we'll be having her on again in a couple months, I would think, and we'll talk more. Daria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, God bless you too. Listen, we're going to come back. Trump, he's unveiled his new immigration reform. We're going to talk about it. Is it good? Is it bad? We're going to weigh the good and the bad. You don't want to miss that. FOD.
Dying for your touch like crazy, racking up the overtime hours, loving how we're working on the night shift, baby.
Welcome back to FreedomOnDeck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Chet Martin here. CB Burton. Oh boy, the Flaming Youth. CB, you saw Facebook ban me again.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
This time for saying white trash.
Yeah. I don't even like that term, but I'm offended all the time. Why is it so bad to offend people?
I don't know, but I don't know if they notice, but I'm white. And, you know, I was just doing it as a joke. It was some woman getting yapped out of a trailer.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that they flag you and then they go through your stuff and they look at it. What concerned me this time, it was on FreedomOnDeck's page. Mm-hmm. So That hasn't happened before, so that's something new.
Yeah, I just see people in two categories, trash and non-trash. It doesn't matter if they're white, black, or anything else.
Oh, no, you're right about that. Speaking of trash, let's talk about it. Immigrants. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Wow, should have had the 8-second delay for that one. President Trump, Thursday, he unveiled a long-awaited immigration overhaul that would dramatically alter how the U.S. accepts people into the country, upending the system in order to favor admissions based on merit rather than family ties. Great idea. You want the best of the best, right? You know, you don't want Juan Paco who's going to come here and leech off the system. Forget about pick your potatoes.
Yeah.
How about leech off the system?
Let's make immigration great again.
Yes. The proposal would judge immigrants with a points-based system that would favor high-skilled workers, accounting for age, English, education, and whether the applicant has a well-paying job offer. Currently, only about 12% of immigrants are admitted based on employment and skills, while 66% are admitted based on family connections. That's not good. Inside the U.S. administration, offices estimate those numbers would flip to 57 and 33%, respectively, under the Trump plan. So his plan would help recruit top talent, not the bottom of the barrel. Not the ones that you see walking down the street in their nice clothes, but they don't seem to assimilate. They don't seem to help the community.
Right.
They seem to get involved with other things, like drug dealing and gang banging, and other nefarious activities. That's what this plan is about. It's about weeding that out, CV.
Yeah. America used to be called the melting pot, the great melting pot, not the great potpourri of enclaves of various different cultures.
Right.
You know, you come here, learn the language, like that's part of his policy. You have to learn the language. You have to pass a test, you know, maybe a written test. You know, you have to be loyal to our country. You have to love America. You have to love our Constitution. You have to love the American way. And it's merit-based. And I'm all for it. A lot of there are alt-right people who might be upset about him saying that he wants to bring in more people. We don't need more people from, you know, third world countries and this and that. Because, you know, our country is huge. We have a lot of land here. And it's okay to bring in more people. But they have to be the right kind of people. They have to offer something. Our economy would actually grow bigger if we had a larger population, if you think about it.
Yeah, we can't start just saying no brown people. No one from the southern border can enter. That you can't have that kind of attitude, because if you have that kind of attitude, then you kind of prove the left right. Yeah. But I see one of the things that, besides this plan, which I think is a good one, is that they're about to release
illegals
that are being held in these facilities over in Texas into Florida. Now, that's a hell of a number to put into Florida. And if you put all those folks into Florida, if we lose Florida because of some rigged system like that, that's a problem.
Hit the Bing button, because you made a good point.
I don't do it for myself.
They want to flood Florida with illegals and all kinds of riffraff because they're trying to flip Florida blue again.
But who's flooding them?
I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, why is, here's my question, and I'm not saying this to, you know, belittle the Trump administration. Who put Obama's head of ICE as the head of head of the border security as the head of ICE right now? Because he is. And he worked for Obama. And now he's been put in there as the head of ICE.
Yeah, I don't know why he picked Christopher Wray as the head of the FBI. He's friends with Mueller. And he was like, you know.
But what's going on? What's going on in the southern border? We can't keep releasing these people. It's record numbers right now. And I understand they are they're undermanned. They don't have enough people working there. They don't have enough people to take care of the children, to take care of the women, to weed out the gangsters. Why aren't we deputizing former cops, a former military, and sending them over there to help?
I don't know, but can I make one more point about the immigration policy? There was the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965 that said 85% of all immigrants have to come from third world countries instead of Europe. Only 15% from Europe. That has to be taken out.
It should be taken out. And let's be honest. Most of the immigrants we want are the ones that have our belief system.
Because if you want to talk about racism, why isn't that racism? That's racism against Europeans, isn't it?
And listen, there's a lot of good Christian Hispanics. Most of the ones that we see in our everyday life are good Christian Hispanics. Mm-hmm. And that might end up saving the United States because the snowflake generation and the millennials and the liberal whiteys, they're no longer even reproducing. Forget about having faith.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it that way. It's true.
We're not reproducing because the left have taken over the entertainment, media, and everything, and they're brainwashing everybody to. They're trying to hurt our family structure,
and it's working.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the issue. But my point is that it might actually end up being the immigrants that save us from the influx of radical Islam.
Good point.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a sad statement, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't have to be, but it might end up being. So, we really need to keep an eye on what's going on over at the southern border, though. Besides this policy, also keep in mind what they're doing and who's coming into your community. Listen, come on back. We're going to be talking to Grant Haber, VP of American Innovations Incorporated. You're not going to want to miss this. Trust me.
Got a house.
Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. You're rocking with the best WJJF on your FM dial, Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. Thank you, folks, for being here. Make sure you go to freedomondeck.com. Check out everything we have to offer you there. Our midweek podcast, Friday nights, 9 p.m., called FOD Overdrive. And it's really picking up. It's getting a lot of views, which I'm enjoying, CV. All the contributors. I'm off my game tonight.
That's how they say it in England.
It's too much baseball on the weekend for me with the kids. I'm telling you, they're running me roughshod. Little League, there's nothing like it. Listen, anyway, there's a new piece in Newsmax magazine that exposes how the IED crisis is killing our troops and how our leaders at the Pentagon are failing us. Grant Haber shines a light on this issue and is a key figure in this phenomenal article by Newsmax reporters David Patton, Michael Dorsowitz, if I'm saying that right, and Jim Myers. And he's the vice president of American Innovations Incorporated, Mr. Grant Haber himself. Thank you for giving us some time, Grant.
Pleasure to be on your show today.
A pleasure to have you. So you developed an IED detection device, and the Pentagon has shunned it. First of all, tell us what this IED detector does, Grant.
It's actually a kit that makes it near impossible for our enemies to even make the IEDs. Once an IED is made, it's too late. People are going to die. And the idea is if we focus on the precursors, the homemade explosive precursors that are being used to make more than 90% of the bombs in Afghanistan and Iraq and other combat zones, not only do we cut off enemy supply, but we simultaneously dismantle bomb maker support networks.
So, Grant, more importantly, why would the Pentagon be suppressing your ID detector when it could have saved countless lives when it initially was developed?
the Pentagon follows a process. The process is trust your people, who have to follow a process. Our government has gotten so big and so bureaucratic, it takes them 3 to 5 years to get out of their own way. So we need to understand is that our men and women in uniform volunteer. We have an all-volunteer military. They're deploying into combat zones where we've drilled down on the IEDs that are the number one casualty producer since the early stages of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. What we need to be doing is taking some of the billions of dollars that are being appropriated year upon year upon year to enable the indigenous police and armies to start to get after these bomb-making materials, so when U.S. troops step outside the bases, they're not a high-value target with an endless supply of suicide bombers ready to take themselves out, take the high-value target out for whatever reason.
What is the Pentagon's main issue here? Did they develop their own IED detector and just want to suppress yours? Is that what it's all about?
The Army has the lead on the counter-IED mission. They've been trying to develop their own capability for, till the end of time. Our government rewards failures, perpetual failures. So the focus is on constant research and development, instead of embracing commercial off-the-shelf solutions that can get after the threats that are front and center today.
So we have Grant Haber on. He's Vice President of American Innovations Incorporated. So, Grant, what is American Innovations Incorporated? And when you developed this and presented it to the Pentagon, how were you involved with them? Where did this all start for you guys?
Wow. As it pertains to the homemade explosive crisis that's responsible for most U.S. military casualties in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're talking about around the 2005 time frame when IEDs were really starting to hurt us hard out on the battlefield. So we worked with the Department of Defense subject matter experts, and we developed a wide variety of capabilities that went through a wide variety of government validation, verification processes, and then pilots in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere. The key to getting ahead of this threat is to work with the guys that are in the fight, because what most people don't seem to understand is one size does not fit all. And what I mean by that is, if we look at our airports, for example, when people get pulled to the side and they do secondary screening and they start swabbing your bags and doing an analysis on the invisible residue off your bags, that's all well and good in a controlled, sterile environment. But you take that same technology and put it in a highly contaminated combat zone where there's explosive residue everywhere and transferring from surface to surface, person to person, it's absolutely useless. And what's important for us to understand is that the men and women in uniform have needs, and when they say they need something, we better step up and give them what the hell they need, because their lives are on the line, and we're doing them a great disservice and their families.
You better believe it. I agree with you 100% with that. Now, Grant, have you and your organization, American Innovations Incorporated, reached out to President Trump and his administration about this huge problem of our leaders at the Pentagon failing our troops?
I've reached out to people within the administration. I've sent a lot of communications, and again, we're in a bureaucratic disaster. The president is surrounding with a lot of carryovers from the last administration, and it's my personal belief is that they need to clean house over there, because my feelings are, if this information got to the president, our commander-in-chief, and he was aware that the number one casualty producer has a solution, he would not be tolerating this crap for a minute.
And that's what I was going to kind of ask you a little bit right now, Grant. Is it true that IED attacks are responsible for most of the U.S. military casualties in Afghanistan and Iraq?
You look at all the data that's out there, IEDs are the most enduring threat on that battlefield. IEDs are the threat that pulled U.S. troops back into the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. If we do not responsibly transition out of Afghanistan, and when I say responsibly, enable the Afghan forces to be able to get after the explosive precursors that are used to make more than 90% of the IEDs, we're going to create the same vacuum that was created in Iraq when President Obama prematurely, abruptly ended that war, not to realize that we did a very poor job and didn't do anything to enable the Iraqi forces to get after the same bomb-making materials that we're encountering in both combat zones on a daily basis.
Now, what's your kit called again? The detecting kit.
The kit is AIHME-001, stands for American Innovations. HME is homemade explosives, and 001 is the simplest form of simplicity.
Now, I'm reading from Newsmax that the kit scored a 100% success rate from independent government testing. Now, if independent government testing is giving it a 100% success rate, why the hell wouldn't it be used on the battlefield?
That's the $5.9 trillion question.
Oh, boy. Why do you think that they're suppressing it, bottom line?
What's interesting is, what is being requested. And what was just mind-boggling to me, this document that the Office of Secretary of Defense published in 2017, despite receiving $6 billion a year on average, the amount of money requested for counter-IED equipment and counter-IED training dropped to zero.
Wow.
$0. It's right in the report. And when you look at the 2019 document, there's not even reference to counter-IED equipment and counter-IED training, yet in the document itself, in the same section, it says $0 requested. It states IEDs are the #1 casualty producer. So it asks the question, it begs the question, how the hell do we responsibly get out of a war when we're ignoring the #1 casualty producer?
So since you've developed this kit, and we know that it's got a 100% success rate, and we know that it can save lives, how many lives have been lost to IEDs since you've developed this kit and it could have been used to save lives? Do you have any ballpark idea?
Lives in general, thousands, possibly tens of thousands.
So you're telling me that the military and the Pentagon could have saved thousands of American lives, but chose not to?
By being proactive and choking off the supply of bomb-making materials to the bomb-maker factories and dismantling the bomb-maker support networks, we make it near impossible, not impossible, because we're never going to stop 100% the IED threat.
Right.
But we make it near impossible for our enemies to build their suicide vests, their vehicle bombs, their roadside bombs, whatever form of IED you want to refer to it as. If they can't get their supply of bomb-making precursor materials, they're not building bombs.
So what's the next step for you guys as far as trying to push forward with this? I mean, I'm assuming you're kind of at a standstill right now, or would you call it a crossroads? Like, what's the plan here?
We need to either brief the commander-in-chief or we need to brief the Secretary of Defense so that they can understand where their leadership is being undermined.
Yeah.
And then we can all work together as a team to help President Trump responsibly end our country's longest war in a way that will not create a vacuum and will not require U.S. troops to redeploy in the very near future.
Well, he reads Newsmax, Grant. So, I mean, he does read Newsmax. So I'm hoping that he gets us a whiff of this. Have you heard that he? Okay, I asked you if you got in touch with the Trump administration. Have you received any feedback at all?
I have not received any feedback from anyone within the administration itself, no.
Okay, do you think they know about this?
I think they'd be hard-pressed not to know about it, but the problem is I do know General Kelly, the former chief of staff, received a letter from former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher requesting a meeting because of this crisis. So I know General Kelly was tracking on this problem, but his feeling was this is an Army problem, so it needs to go to the Army. And then when Congress engages the Army says that there's no crisis. IEDs are not a future threat. IEDs, we got it all under control.
Right.
Meanwhile, just last month, 3 Marines died in April in Afghanistan. Unacceptable.
It is unacceptable, and I know the attack that you're talking about. Listen, Grant, we only have a minute to go, so I want you to be able to tell everybody where to go to give you support and to check you guys out.
We have a team building out. IED crisis will soon be. You go to Twitter, go to LinkedIn, go to Facebook. There's going to be a website, IEDcrisis.com. It's all being built out right now. We are committed to helping our commander-in-chief end this war. We are committed to helping our troops be relevant and safe. And IED crisis will be the point to go to find all this information.
Excellent, everybody. That was Grant Haber, Vice President of American Innovations Incorporated. Make sure to go check them out. Very important stuff. Listen, come back. The House passes, with the help of the Democrats, a bill allowing males to compete against females in girls' sports. That's right, hoo-ha's against the wing-wongs. Come back to FOD. Oh yeah, that's all we do is climb the mountain here on FOD. Me, you, and CV. This is the place to be. I'm not going to keep rhyming. House Democrats vote unanimously Friday in favor of legislation that would expand the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to include sexual orientation and gender identity as protected classes. The bill, which passed 236-173 with the support of 8 Republicans, would protect LGBTQ individuals from discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodations. It also is going to let the wing-wongs compete against the hoo-ha's in sports around the country, just like happened in Connecticut with the 2 track stars, men, that competed against the women.
Yeah. Why can't ideology be a protected class? If you're a conservative, why can't that be a protected class? Or if you want to be a liberal or whatever, why can't that be a protected class? Because we're the ones being trampled on. Our rights are being trampled on all over the place by social media.
And how dare they include this in the Civil Rights Act, man?
I know.
Of 1964. It's a disgrace. Can you imagine Martin Luther King rolling in his grave right now?
How can a boy who's pretending to be a girl compete with girls on like a racetrack, or whatever the heck, whatever sport it is? It's not fair. Obviously, the physiology of a man is stronger than a woman.
No, it's not fair. And you know what? They have a mental illness, and half of them I know are doing it just to get ahead in life. Mm-hmm. The one kid, Mac Beggs, who has won 2 state championships in wrestling. You look at a picture of him grabbing a girl and putting her in a full Nelson. CV, it looks like me, you, or Brian. I mean, he's got a 5 o'clock shadow. The kid's 17 years old, and he's winning all these state championships, and he's putting a little girl in a full Nelson. And the liberals, this is what happens, though. The liberals catch themselves in these things to the point where they have to push through bills on this. CV, I thought it was the liberals that were pro-women.
I wish they could take a step back and look at it through the lenses of sanity. and realize that it's a Monty Python sketch. It's so absurd, it's laughable. Just the picture of it in your mind is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, when you have somebody that talks to their garbage disposal, putting forward legislation like this, what do you expect?
I don't know.
It's the morons leading the morons. And to look at Nancy up there smiling, this is a proud day for America, as her dentures fall out.
Yeah. These socialists, they hate Christianity because they think we're self-righteous. But look how self-righteous they are. But they are so self-righteous in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Here's an example. It's like a paradox. They talk about this Me Too movement where if you hold the door open for a woman, you must be a creep. You must be a sexual harasser and all this stuff. But then every TV show and everything they produce in the entertainment business is all perverted. Every commercial on TV is perverted and has sexual innuendo written all over it. And it's like, if it feels good, do it, and use abortion as what do you call it?
You can't hold the door open for a woman, but you can let a man walk through the bathroom door and sit down in a stall next to a woman.
Yeah.
Tell me how that works.
Yeah.
Sickening. Listen, in all full disclosure, this is a pre-recorded interview with our good friend Brigitte Gabriel. She's got the new book Rise out. I think it was important enough to play today. It was on our podcast, FOD Overdrive. Heard every Friday nights at 9 on FreedomOnDeck.com. Take a listen, and we'll be back in a bit.
This truck needs a half tank. These wheels need a 2-lane. This radio needs 3 songs to play to get me across town to you.
Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, WJJF on your FM dial. Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. You're rocking with the best. Listen, folks, go to FreedomOnDeck.com, see everything we have to offer there for you. Great contributors. You know, we have this one poster for the guests that we've had on the show, some of our all-time greats, all of them in front of the American flag, and one of them's on the phone with me right now. Returning to the program is a great hero of mine and a brave patriotic woman, terrorism expert, and chairman at Act for America, the largest national security grassroots organization in the United States, and author of the new best-selling book, Rise, the one and only Brigitte Gabriel. Brigitte, the last time we spoke, Rise had just been released, so how has the book been received by your fans and followers?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back on the show. I'm so excited to be with you.
Thank you.
And then the book is having a lot of traction. It's a bestseller, and I'm so grateful for people who are hungry for this message. You know, the title of my book is Rise, in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom.
Yes.
Our American values that are under attack right now nationwide. The world is turned upside down right now, and Americans understand if you live anywhere between the East Coast and the left coast, and what the leftists refer to as flyover country, you understand that there's a major problem happening in our country. We are losing control of our country. And because of that, people are waking up, people are becoming more involved, more engaged, people are reading, they are hungry for information so they can know what to do, how can they be involved, and that's exactly what my book Rise provides, and that's why it's really finding a lot of traction with people, and I'm so grateful for that.
I wanted to tell you, one of our national guys during the week, Mike Gallagher, he has the Conservative Book Club, and they were talking about your book last week. So.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Yes. They're discussing you and I believe Michael Savage's latest book. So that you guys were 1 and 2, respectively.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
So you're here on Long Island on Thursday. You're coming in for a speaking engagement, I believe, Brigitte. So what's the discussion? Where are you appearing for our listeners?
Wonderful. Well, I'm coming to Long Island to speak to our chapter. We have chapters nationwide. My organization, actforamerica.org. Actforamerica.org is our website. Act for America is now the largest national security grassroots organization in the country with over 1 million members. Our focus is protecting America from all threats, foreign and domestic. And so I'm coming to Long Island because I'm speaking about to our chapter and to our members on Long Island and anybody basically who wants to attend. The event is free and open to the public. We encourage people to come because we want people to understand about what America is facing today, the threats to our national security. While we started as focusing on radical Islamic terrorism after 9/11, at that time, in 2001, 2002, MS-13 gang members were not roaming our streets the way they are now. Antifa did not exist. Black Lives Matter did not exist. However, today the situation in America is completely different. So I'm going to be discussing at my presentation the threats that we are facing today as a nation, whether it's MS-13 gang members roaming our streets. And it's going to be an important topic, especially in Long Island, because as you know, Long Island has become a hub to MS-13 gang members.
Yes.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about.
It's terrible what's going on. And where is the speaking engagement? Where will this be located? Where do people look for tickets or whatever?
Actually, it's going to be in Huntington, at the Hilton Huntington, and it's free and open to the public, but people have to register in order to attend. They need to go to actforamerica.org/Long Island. So ACT, ACT, for FOR America.org/Long Island in order to obtain tickets. And I encourage everyone listening, go register, get tickets to your friends. We want to make sure, bring as many people as you can with you, but you have to register them. Registration stops on Wednesday at noon. So we need people to come out. We need people to support this event. It's already jam-packed. We are so excited. We're having already great turnout. So make sure you get your ticket. I would love to see you there.
Brigitte, the MS-13 Street Gang has infiltrated Brentwood, Long Island, and resulted in way too many young people's lives being taken. How are these illegal gang members from El Salvador and Guatemala and Mexico being relocated to Long Island?
Well, here's what happened. They are attracted. They are sneaking through the Mexican border, and this is exactly why President Trump, in order to secure the nation, understands the problem with the Mexican border. It's not just little poor people coming here to work because they're seeking better life. It's the gang members, the dangerous gang members and thugs who are coming through the border. And they're not staying in the border states. They're not staying in Texas, California, New Mexico, etc. What they're doing is they are making their way over to the big cities. They're going to the East Coast and the West Coast and all the major cities across the country. But they are going, in particular, they are attracted to areas where they already have a community of people from El Salvador, where they come from. Originally, the majority of them are from El Salvador. So because Long Island has a big concentration of people from El Salvador, they are coming to that area and they are blending in because they already have a support system. They already have associate brothers in the gang, as they say, a soul brother type thing in the gangs that can take them under their wings, that can support them, that can give them homes, basically get them established in the United States. So they're not on their own. And the reason why they are attracted to the major cities is because they know the major cities are usually lefties. We know that all mayors in major cities are to the left.
Right.
And usually major cities do not like the Second Amendment. Their people are not armed. This is exactly why these guys are not going to the rural communities where they most likely will encounter somebody who literally will shoot them if they break into somebody's house or they would kill somebody. Because the average American carries a weapon, in flyover country. But when you go to Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Long Island, New York, there are very lax gun regulations, and most people are not armed and they are anti-gun. So it is fertile ground for a gang as violent as MS-13 and as ruthless as MS-13 to know that they are going to be able to carry their monstrous attacks against civilians who are most likely will not be armed and will not be able to defend themselves, which gives MS-13 gang members the prominence and the stature, the bad stature, the good stature in the eyes of the gang members as, wow, look how bloody they are, look how good they are, because the worse you are as a human being, the more glamorized you are in the gang community.
Yep.
And so that's why they love that area.
They don't want to come to my house, Brigitte, I'll tell you that. We have Brigitte Gabriel on the line, chairman of Act for America and author of Rise. She's going to be at the Huntington Hilton on Thursday. Make sure you go to actforamerica.com and sign up. Are they sent to family that they may have here that are part of the reason they're making it to Long Island? Because we are a sanctuary county. Both the Nassau and Suffolk are actually sanctuary counties, Brigitte. Is that also what's happening?
Exactly. They are gravitating to sanctuary cities because, look, I mean, they already have seen the news, what's happening, for example, in major lefty cities. Look at California. Basically, the leadership, the elected leadership, sided with the MS-13 gang members against ICE, who was arresting the MS-13 gang members and getting them out. So when you have leadership siding with the gang members who are killing their citizens instead of siding with the citizens that elected them, you know, the primary responsibility for any elected official in the United States is to protect the people of the United States and to protect the country. Their job is not to protect the criminals and the thugs, and especially the foreign agents who are coming into our country and killing the civilians, the innocent citizens. And so this is why they gravitate towards sanctuary cities again. Leftist-controlled sanctuary cities who they know that the leadership, the elected officials are going to side, if it comes down to it, they're going to side with the MS-13 gang members against their own citizens. So that's the appeal. That's why they go there.
Brigitte, last week, the story of this terrorist compound that was raided in Alabama, it was greatly disregarded by the media. Last year, there was one in New Mexico and was raided, and somehow the facility got taken down, and I still scratch my head about that. But anyway, they seem like they were eerily similar. How many terrorist training facilities are located in these here United States?
Well, we estimate around 42 to 43. We know that the FBI knows of and is monitoring about 22 of them nationwide. And so, you know, they are like terrorist compounds. They belong to Jama'at al-Fukra. You know, there's one famous compound, actually, that was established years ago in Islamburg. So those who are listening to us, you know, up there in your area, they're pretty probably have already heard about Islamburg. So the phenomena of setting up these compounds in rural communities and practicing in the woods, you know, shooting and kind of like a paramilitary training, you know, you guys have heard about that.
Sure.
But a lot of people in the rest of the country who may not be as familiar with them are waking up to realize they are in their communities. I mean, a lot of people think Alabama. I mean, you cannot get any more south, you know, southern nice people, you know, than Alabama, and you think, how can a compound like this exist? But it does exist because people in these type of communities, like and the Midwest and in the heartland, you know, they do not want to bother people. Remember, it's open land. It's not unusual to somebody have a dirt road leading, and then there's like a little, you know, a trailer or a little compound at the end of the dirt road that nobody even bothers going down because they know, you know, a lot of people live like that. And it's not unusual to hear, you know, gunshots, people hunting in the woods, etc. But what's been happening is, thankfully, a lot of people are opening their eyes, and usually they call the FBI with a tip if they notice suspicious activity in those locations, and that's how they're blowing the whistles on these type of compounds.
Brigitte, Bernie Sanders appeared in a town hall on CNN and actually made this statement that the Boston Marathon bomber should have the right to vote. Hearing that was shocking. What's your position on the left's radical agenda with these 2020 candidates?
Well, look, America is at a crossroad. I mean, the choice could not have been clearer. Cannot be any clearer. When you look at how the Democratic people who are running, the Democrats who are running for office on the left are talking. I mean, we were just talking about MS-13 gang members. Is it any wonder why the thugs and the criminals and the gang members and the terrorists know that people on the left side, elected officials and those who are vying for the highest office in the land, will basically side with the criminals instead of siding with the American people. So when you have people like Bernie Sanders saying that criminals should have the right to vote, including the Boston bombers, you scratch your head and you think to yourself, how did we get to the day when we have a hopeful, a person running for the President of the United States position, the highest position in the land, actually uttering the word that criminals and terrorists should have the right to vote just like any American. Those are the people that try to kill Americans. They despise us. They despise our country. They want to see the overthrow of our democracy. Yet somebody like Bernie Sanders running for president wants to give them right. The choice is very clear right now in this upcoming election. If you want to protect the United States, if you want to stand up for the flag, if you want to stand with our police officers, if you want to honor the military, if you want secure border, the choice is clear as to what party and what group is going to be able to stand and defend the country, and what party or what group is going to literally sell the American people and protect the MS-13 gang members, the criminals, the drug dealers, the terrorists, even those who kill American lives.
Unbelievable. We have Brigitte.
Exactly. And this is why I encourage people to come hear me in Long Island. The information that I'm going to share is going to be shocking. It's important for people to understand what's happening and why we need to rise in defense of our American freedom. You need to get tickets in order for you to come. It's a free event. You're welcome. We want you to come and bring as many people as you can, but you have to register. Go to actforamerica.org/Long Island to get tickets. The deadline, the cutoff is Wednesday at noon. Make sure you get tickets and you register before Wednesday at noon.
I wanted to ask you before you get going, and we have Brigitte Gabriel on the line, chairman of Act for America and author of the hit Rise. Get the book. I'm telling you, it's a great book. I've read it myself. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib recently made some very vile comments about the Holocaust. I'm not going to repeat it on the airways because it's disgusting. Ilhan Omar repeatedly makes disgusting accusations against Israel and America. And, you know, we'll never forget some people did something. How dangerous are these congresswomen, Brigitte?
They are very dangerous because right now they are literally, it's like the tail wagging the dog. It's they who are driving the agenda for the Democratic Party. It's them and Ocasio-Cortez. So when you see people like that actually Nancy Pelosi fears because they have the followers on social media, they are the ones who are dominating the news. It's not Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the followers that they have. I mean, look, Ilhan Omar is raising more money than a lot of the leaders of the Democratic Party. The same goes for Ocasio-Cortez. And they are raising money. They have 4 million. I mean, look, Cortez has 4 million followers on Instagram. 4 million.
What? Yeah.
I mean, the numbers that you hear are just unbelievable. What person in the Democratic leadership, whether it's Schumer, whether it's Pelosi, have even close to these numbers? They don't. And that's why the leadership of the Democratic Party is under the mercy of these young, radical, emotional, hateful, bigoted, young elected leaders who are now basically spewing their hate across the airwaves, and especially their anti-Semitism. I mean, when you look at what comes out of Tlaib's mouth and what comes out of Ilhan Omar's mouth, you shake your head in amazement that actually the Democratic Party and especially the Jewish community, which 80% votes Democrat and give their money to the Democratic Party, 80% of the Jewish community are now seeing the result of where their money is going, what their money has elected, and they better wake up now before it's too late.
Absolutely. Brigitte, tell everybody where they go again to get those to be able to attend your event again, please.
People can go to our website, actforamerica.org/Long Island. You have to make sure you go to the website, actforamerica.org/Long Island, in order for you to register to come on Wednesday. I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to meeting as many of you who can come. Bring a friend. It's important that we all come together, understand the problem, and together we can work to rise up to defend our country.
Everybody, that was the awesome, wonderful Brigitte Gabriel, chairman of Act for America. Get the new book, Rise, and go see her at the Hilton on Thursday. You're not going to regret it. Listen, come back. We're going to wrap things up here on Freedom on Deck. It's going to be another hot topic. Stick around.
And so maybe I'll be
Thank you so much.
outside of this one church town. There's a gold.
Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. And this is God's country. Yeah, right here, baby. You know, I want to talk about some people that don't live in God's country. Comey and Brennan. To end the show, short little segment here because we went a little long with Brigitte Gabriel, but the launch of a formal inquiry into the origins of the Russia investigation being led by one of the Justice Department's toughest prosecutors has touched off a new round of behind-the-scenes finger-pointing among Obama administration officials and could have some explaining to do about efforts to surveil the Trump campaign. A key dispute, CV, that flared this week concerned whether FBI Director James Comey or then CIA Director John Brennan, or both of them, which I would kind of side with, pushed the unverified Steele dossier containing claims about President Trump and his relationship to Russia. The dossier's, hate that word, more sensational claims were never sustained by Special Counsel Bob Mueller. So we knew this was going to happen, CV. The rats are turning on each other now.
Yeah, they caught with their pants down, and Brennan saying that, no, it's the FBI's job to confirm the information in the dossier, not mine. Meanwhile, he was the one who was like leaking it to the press so that they can verify the dossier or the information to get the FISA warrants. So, you know what I mean? It's like,
who's going to fall first in all this? You think it's going to be Peter Strzok and Page? I mean, it's got to be a smaller fish, right, before they get Brennan or Comey. I mean, Comey's a big one that we want to get.
I want Obama eventually, but like Mueller had to do, he takes the underlings and squeezes them and threatens them in order to get them to come up with dirt on the people that are over them. That's what we got to do. That's what our side has to do to get the people higher up on the ladder. Because this was all ordered by Obama in the end.
Well, it's all a tangled weave. Tangled web, sorry. Tangled weave. I've not been on point in this show. I'm telling you.
You had a hard day.
I'm like zero sleep. I got sunburn. A tangled weave.
Oh, what a web we weave when we first practice to deceive. That's what it is.
Well, I was thinking about it, and I wasn't saying weave like something that a girl wears on their head. I was saying, the tangled web that they weave. Men wear weaves, too. But how many other people are in this this cluster, are going to turn on each other?
Well, the trail ends at Obama's desk. It's his name on the plaque. It's his name on the door. He's going to have to take responsibility for it. It was in his administration. He was spying on everybody, and that's where the trail ends, man.
The chickens come home to roost?
Yep.
Wasn't it his pastor that said that at one time about 9/11?
Yep.
his wonderful Muslim pastor there.
And a former president said the buck stops here. You know, taking responsibility. But Obama never takes responsibility for anything.
No. No, he does take responsibility for some things. Trump's economy.
Yeah. But then he would blame the bad economy on Bush. So it's like, I guess his administration didn't happen at all.
I hate when you get an argument with a liberal with that and you point that out to them. They're, don't go to the well with that. What are you talking about? That's exactly what he did. When it sucked for him, it was Bush's fault. When it's great under Trump, it's because of him. Give me a break, man. It's unbelievable. Listen, folks, come back next week. We got a good show for you. We've got Lady Denier, as I promised she would come by. She's the fiance of Chris Stevens. We're going to be talking about Benghazi. We're going to be revisiting Benghazi, and we have Don Brown, lawyer. Everybody have a fantastic day.
Screwing chicks says as long as we're home by Saturday morning.